Michigan heads out west to take on Oregon this weekend. We are here to preview it. I've got Connor Hope from Heat Check CBB. My name is GregWaddell from Sleepers Media. This is my Michigan Wolverines. For those that don't know, I am a fan of this program, and I'm pretty nervous about this game. I'll be honest with you. I have swung wildly in different directions about how good I think this Michigan team is. Even after the Long Beach State game, I thought that was just, hey, team got super hot against us. We got to fix the defense. It is what it is. Then I watched the Memphis slog. Then I watched them go down 15 to Stanford before turning it on. Then I watched them just be stuck against Texas Tech for 40 minutes with no answers. I don't know what this team's going to look like. They've had a week off before this game. Hopefully they're rested. Juwan Howard is an assistant coach for this game. That's the breaking news coming into this. He is formally announced he is going to transition to being an assistant coach this week. I don't know if that's long-term or just for the week, but things feel weird with this Michigan program right now. Is that a fair assumption heading into this game, Connor?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you have, I don't know if it's voluntary or not, but like anytime you have a coach voluntarily offer up that they're going to demote themselves to assistant coach, things seem odd. And maybe not quite on the level of Louisville's we don't have the right tights, so our player doesn't want to play admission from Kenny Payne odd, but things definitely seem odd in Ann Arbor.
It's weird times. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I would assume this is like doctor's orders. You can't go back to head coaching yet, but like, what do the doctors say about getting technicals when you're not coaching? Because that can't be good for the heart, I would just say. It's certainly not good for your team. I called the Atlantis trip for Michigan. I said they needed to go 2-1. And that was under the assumption that, like, if this team is to be taken seriously as a threat in the Big Ten or a threat nationally at any level, you just had to go 2-1 in that event. I didn't think the field was that strong. They lost to Memphis. I thought if they won the next two, I would have felt pretty good about that. It didn't happen. Now they're sitting in a spot. They're 4-3. You're going on the road to a game that could end up, I mean, it should be a quad one game when all is said and done. I don't know how good Oregon actually is. They've got injury concerns in the front court right now. We expect them to be without both N'Faly Dante and Nate Biddle in this game. Oregon's lost 2 straight games, albeit to 2 pretty good teams. I like Santa Clara, and Alabama's Alabama. So it's like a critical turn things around spot for both sides, I think. Who do you think needs this game more? Is it Oregon at home or is it the Wolverines?
I think it's Oregon from a tournament perspective needs this game more because the opportunities that they're going to get in the Pac-12 are far from elite. You get Arizona, but I don't see Oregon beating Arizona. UCLA, USC are going to be pretty good, but we've seen those two teams show wrinkles of weakness so early in this season. And Colorado, Utah, maybe. And that's pretty much it in terms of, marquee games that they could go out and potentially win. And I also think that winning without their 2 bigs should give them confidence heading into the next 3 weeks without Dante, 7 weeks without Biddle, because there are a lot more games down, the stretch of the season in this stretch of the season that could give them some scares. They have Syracuse that I think they could potentially lose to without their 2 bigs. USC, UCLA are their first 2 Pac-12 games of the season. So they don't get Dante probably is back for USC, UCLA, but they're not going to be at full strength for those games. And so I just think Michigan's a team I'm still kind of hoping that they figure it out over the course of the year. Whereas Oregon is a team that if they were going to be the team people thought they were going to be, it was going to happen, I think, right away. I know they have some freshmen on that roster, but with Cuisinart and Biddle and Dante who are out, you were expecting, I think, a hotter start for Oregon than they've had.
Yeah, certainly. I did. I thought they would get one of those 2 games, at least probably the Santa Clara game. And Oregon had leads in that game. They had chances to pull away. Adama Ball was just like unstoppable individually down the stretch of that game, which is what swung it. But so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what to expect, but from a confidence level, I'm just pretty shaken on this Michigan group because of how poorly they are defensively right now. I don't know what the plan is with this team defensively. Last year, it felt like it was pretty clear that there were pointed issues, namely Jet Howard just never knew what defense they were in, and there were some effort concerns with him on an individual level that if he was playing 32 minutes, it affected the other guys and it kind of killed the defense. This year, I don't think it's an individual level, and I'm struggling to interpret what the problem is because I think you go up and down the personnel. I think Olivier Kamwa has shown he can be a very good individual defender. I think Namari Burnett has been a key part of some very good defenses. I think Terrace Reed has all the skill set in the world to be a great defender right now. Why is this Michigan team struggling so much on that end? Obviously, they haven't had the head coach, but I almost don't know what they're doing wrong.
They're young. The two stats that they don't I don't think they force turnovers out as much, but defensively, like teams are making threes at a high efficiency against them. Teams are making free throws at a high efficiency against them, and they're shooting quite a bit from the free throw stripe against them. Neither of those two percentages are super sticky to a defense, and they've played some good backcourt teams, right? The last two games, Santa Clara's backcourt might be the best in the WCC with Adama Ball and Carlos Marshall Jr. And Alabama's, the strength of their team is their backcourt, and it has been for the past couple of years. So I'm expecting those numbers to float back, I think, a little bit more to mean. But you're right. I mean, there's something off because this is a team that has the length and the size where they should be good defensively. And my bigger question for Michigan this year was on the offensive end, and then they've shown that that's not really an issue for them. So I'm not sure what the big issue is with this defense.
Yeah, it's one of those things like I really don't think much is going to shift whenever Juwan Howard is back as a full-time head coach, but that's the one thing I would point to that you hope changes a little bit, which feels odd because I think Juwan was a huge part of why the defense struggled last year, letting his son play through mistakes. But it's just weird. I think I said it in the last recap after the Texas Tech loss. It would be a lot easier to stomach some mistakes and some struggles from this roster if they were really good defensively and having issues offensively, because that's what the roster looks like it should be on paper, just given the players and who they are and what they've been in their careers. I would be able to be perfectly fine. It wouldn't be fun, but like if Doug was just the only guy on offense and he was struggling and they were competing defensively and losing games, then I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. To me, it's like we're wasting great performances from this sophomore point guard who's way ahead of where he should be because they just keep leaving guys wide open. And I don't know how you fix that. It is, I know you said they're young. They are young at the same time. Like that's why they brought Kamwa and Burnett in, was to kind of fix that and plug those holes. And for whatever reason, it hasn't worked.
I read my notes completely wrong on that one. They do have played strong backcourts. I was saying Santa Clara because I still had Oregon on my mind.
Oh yeah.
But Long Beach State has a pretty good backcourt, pretty good wings as well. Memphis obviously has a very strong backcourt.
Yeah.
So yeah. Flip my notes on that one, but
fingers crossed. It'll change. We'll see. All right. Final question. Obviously, Oregon is a little injury ridden, right? We talked about the front court guys that are out. For that reason, I think this is an opportunity for Michigan because, say what you want about Oregon's front court, but Terrace Reed hasn't been great. He's been a big part of the defensive problem. So if either of those guys was available, I think this would be a game they have a bit of a mismatch against Terrace in. If you were just picking players out of a lineup here from everyone who's going to be active for this game, are the first two names off the list on the Michigan side? Is it who I think they are, and Doug McDaniel and Olivier Kamwa, or is there anybody from Oregon you would take over those two?
No, that's it. And I think Kamwa's going to have a huge game without those two bigs available. Oregon's just they're not a big team behind them. You've got Kwame Evans and Juara at 6'9", 6'10". Everyone else is like 6'5" and below. They were really built around those Biddle and Dante. And I think losing them is why they've struggled against Santa Clara and Alabama, because they have no interior presence without those two on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, right? You lose key pieces of what you're trying to do. Sometimes there are no answers. And I like the call out for Conway. I think this needs to be a good game for him. He's been one of the more interesting guys to monitor for me this year across the country, not just my team, but there was so much made about his inconsistencies at Tennessee. And, it's kind of one of those things where, like, on paper, I was wondering why Tennessee fans weren't like in an uproar that they were losing this guy. And when you talk to Tennessee fans, it was like, well, I mean, he was a liability like 50% of the time for us. I'm like, that's strange because the tape shows a guy who should be a superstar. And then he's gotten to Michigan, and I mean, he's had 16 or more points in 6 of their 7 games this year. And it still leaves you wanting more. Like, it's almost like an easy 16 when he has those games, and you feel like he should be dominating even more than he does. So it's really odd. I haven't had a player that I've watched be as productive as him, leaving you so underwhelmed at times. And I don't know what that says about him or about the Michigan roster, but I do know this is a game where they need a superstar performance from him based on who his matchup will be individually and how it bodes well at this point in the season in a critical game for the Michigan Wolverines.
And it's not even like it's just he's putting up 16 from the interior and they're kind of stopping him from getting into the paint. Like, he's a good shooter too. Mm-hmm. So he should be, I agree with you, he should be getting more in some of these games, because you look at, I mean, even the game against Long Beach State, right? Their bigs are good, but they're at Long Beach State for a reason, right? They're Kamwa's should be a top 10 forward in the Big Ten minimum. And so it's interesting to see him not even struggle in these games, but kind of fade out for stretches.
Yeah, it's like passive, but the numbers don't show any passiveness. But just watching him play to play, it's like he kind of floats. And I think that speaks to how good he could be on days where he doesn't take possessions off, because the numbers are crazy. All right, let's go prediction mode here. Call your shot. Who wins this game? I don't know what the spread will be here. I don't know if anybody cares from a betting perspective, but I believe KenPom has this as a 4-point Oregon win. Who do you think wins this game?
I think Michigan wins this game. Close, but I think Michigan wins this game. Oregon has shown without those two bigs that they are not a winning basketball team. That's what they've shown. And I don't see that changing against Michigan when they have talent in that front court that should overwhelm Kwame Evans and whoever they can throw at the 4 and the 5 against this Michigan front court. So Michigan's prone to, I mean, the team is prone to struggling on defense. And so that should give opportunities for Oregon. But I just don't see how Oregon wins this game without Dante, who was supposed to be their best player, and Biddle, who you could argue is supposed to be their second best.
Yeah, it feels like a massive opportunity for my team. I think if either of the centers were active, I would take Oregon pretty easily here. Just seems like, I know Michigan's had a week to prepare, but so has Oregon, and the home team, first true road game type thing. I'm going to do the Kirk Herbstreit refrain from picking, because my gut tells me I actually do think Oregon still finds a way here. I just don't trust Michigan's defense enough. And Oregon, for all the issues they have health-wise right now, they're a good offense. Like, if they play the same defense that has shown up every game so far for Michigan, I think Oregon's scoring 80 to 90 points in this game. And I think if that happens, Kamwa and Doug could both be great, and you're still looking at a 10-point deficit based on what they have around them. So until that defense gets figured out, hard for me to pick. I'll refrain and hope that Connor Hope is correct.
If it gives you any sort of comfort, Oregon gave up 88 to Santa Clara, and almost 100 to Alabama. So their defense without Dante and Biddle is not much better.
I can promise you there will be points scored in this game. Well, I wonder what the over-under will be, but I advise you to take the over. I advise you to watch this game because it will be pretty fun. My wife made dinner reservations at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Told her we're going to have to slot that back about 30 minutes because I expect to be in crunch time sweating this one out on Saturday afternoon. Connor Hope, thank you for being here, my friend. You can get his work over at Heat Check CBB. I'm Greg Waddell with Sleepers Media. Stay tuned for the recap after this game this weekend. We'll see you next time.